You are now tuning into BaisWave.
You're listening to the Now Network, where we follow Bachelor of International Studies alumni to explore the wide range of career paths they've taken since graduation. Today we'll be speaking with Robin Breedeveld, who currently works as a policy officer of food and nutrition security at the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Yeah, my name is Robin. I'm 26 now, and I graduated from international studies in 2022. Then I went on to do my master's in South Africa at the University of Cape Town, and right now I'm working for the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs on food security and nutrition in the International Cooperation Directorate. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing right now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What region did you pick and what language during your study?
So I picked Africa with Swahili, and that's also kind of what led me to do my master's at UCT, University of Cape Town, because I really wanted to continue my master's in the continent itself. And I initially wanted to do it in East Africa because of the Swahili, but then I saw that the study programs at UCT were really, really good, so that's why I decided to do it there.
Nice.
Yeah.
How did you say how you ended up picking Africa?
No, I didn't. So I was also really unsure. I think, doubting between like East Asia, Africa, or Latin America. But I think what I did is I started reading articles on all of these three continents, and I just went with my gut feeling.
Yeah. Well, you picked right, I think. That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, I did. I'm very glad I did. And I mean, there's all these things that I could say about why I chose it. Like, it's so diverse. It's a continent that is very misunderstood, I guess, in like Europe or the US or like the West. And I wanted to understand more about it and like also challenge our own like misconceptions or like views and all these things I could say. But really the tactic that I used was just reading articles and going by my gut feeling. Yeah.
And what did you do during your 5th semester? Some people do a study abroad, internship, minor. Did you do any of those?
So, in my 5th semester, COVID hit, or it already hit. Yeah. So I was one of those students, and it was really a bummer because I wanted to go on exchange to Hong Kong. I actually got accepted for Hong Kong, and it was going to be super interesting because I was going to go to the African Studies department in Hong Kong. But we didn't get to do that, so I just chose to do like an extra minor. And again, I was very like sad when that happened, but then I think it also led me to explore doing my entire master's abroad. So I'm also grateful that I kind of opened my view to doing my master's abroad because of that, because I still wanted a study exchange kind of experience. Yeah,
that makes sense. What other ways did COVID end up impacting your bachelor experience?
I think so. I started my studies in September 2018, and then COVID hit like February 2020. So I only experienced student life really for a year, I would say, maybe a year and a couple of months. So I also didn't really explore the city as much. Like, you know, students go to bars and parties and do stuff like this, like the things on the side that also build your interest and stuff. And we didn't really get to do that much. I was part of the like Africa committee, and we did organize lectures and stuff, but we had to do that online, which is of course a completely different experience. And I was still very passionate about the courses that I was doing, but yeah, it was hard doing that all from your room. And I lived in Scheveningen with 2 amazing girls that I'm still very close friends with. And in the beginning they left to their homes, to their parents. So it was definitely also mentally hard to like drag yourself through the program. And then I didn't get to do the exchange. But I think overall I don't know. It's funny because when you're in it, you're like, oh, this is the end of the world. This is the end of my life. I don't ever get to do this again, or like have the opportunity to go abroad. But then now a couple of years later I'm like, oh yeah, that happened. Kind of forgot about it. Yeah.
You're working in food and nutrition policy. Mm-hmm. So how did that end up happening?
Yeah.
Basically is the question.
Great question. So I did my master's in development studies, still very broad, very much like IS really. And at the University of Cape Town, there were a couple of courses that we had to do that were mandatory. And then there were like a lot of courses that you could just choose. And I ended up choosing a lot of courses on like natural resource management, land management. And then I wrote my thesis on conflict over land between a community in Cape Town that is historically marginalized and a nature reserve. So there was like a nature reserve and it was bordering a community and they had been like historically excluded from this nature reserve, and I was doing my thesis about that. And through all these courses and my thesis, I got really interested in like environmental humanities. So everything that intersects with nature, food security, land management, water, all these kind of issues. And then in Cape Town, I also got involved with some like civil society organizations. So next to my research site, there was like a toxic landfill, and the water would go through this landfill and drag all the toxic like water into the community, basically. And then there was this activist that was activating for organic waste to be diverted into compost and then given to farmers of color for like better soils. So I was like working for him a little bit, writing policy briefs and like doing workshops with farmers, and it was really cool to do that like in person. And he also advocated for like, there was an aquifer in the do you know what that means?
I think so, yeah.
It's like a big body of water that's in the ground basically, and it's like stored there. And Cape Town has a huge water problem. They have like a lot of drought. And they wanted to do like industrial development on top of that aquifer, but that would really impact the body of water. So this activist was also like really advocating for that not happening. So I was like also working with that. Yeah, so that's how I got into environmental humanities. And then I did a very short internship in Kenya. It was like an unpaid internship, so like kind of like voluntary work / internship in like monitoring and evaluation. And then I got to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs through a traineeship program, and they interviewed me for 2 positions. One was the Sub-Saharan Africa department, and one was the food security and nutrition department. And then I ended up getting offers for both, and I had to choose, and it was really hard because I'm really passionate about Africa. I did Swahili and all that, but I wanted to bring a little bit more focus to what I was doing because IS was so broad, my master's was so broad, and then during my research I got to narrow it down a little bit. So yeah, I decided to go for food and nutrition security policy, and I'm not necessarily a technical expert at all, but I'm learning a lot on more niche subjects, and it's still on the continent that I'm passionate about because the programs that we do develop, they are mostly in African countries, so I have a bit of both. Yeah, sorry for a super
no
answer.
Please, no, that's great. Yeah, that's really interesting, the work you're doing, and also just IS is so broad, and you continue to do a broad master, and now you're narrowing it down. I think that's something that a lot of IS students, you could say like, or you could say struggle with, like such a wide range of interests. So like it's cool that you continue that till kind of the very end, and now you're like getting specific.
Yeah,
that's inspiring.
and I'm sure that I will continue doing that for the rest of my life because I don't got it all figured out, and I'm not a technical expert. I work with a lot of colleagues who did study like really technical at Wageningen University, like land management, or know a lot about seeds. We work a lot with seeds that are like climate resilient. And I'm just learning from them really, and maybe my next step will be something deeper, maybe it will be widening it again, but it's, you get to do that at any point. Yeah, just follow whatever makes you tick, I guess. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Were there any specific courses in IS that you felt like either prepared you for the role you're doing now, or just prepared you in general to continue on to do a master's?
That's a really great question. So I loved studying Swahili. Like I loved it so much. I devoted a lot of time to it. And I think that's what led me eventually to doing my master's in South Africa. I know it's a completely like different part of the continent, but it did kind of like push me in that direction. And then in terms of courses, so I was just talking with my roommate about this because she also did IS actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I think IS really teaches you to write exceptionally well. Like it really teaches you to write really well, and I think that's really helping me in writing motivation letters for jobs, but also in writing reports in my job. And we think it's like so normal, but actually we can write pretty well as like as a bachelor's. I don't know. I think it's just like generally thinking about, like critically thinking about certain topics, and sometimes I still try to bring that into my work, because sometimes you see things happening and you're like, how would this work? And you dive into it a little bit deeper. Like for example, I work right now in development corporation, and sometimes we work with Dutch businesses, right? And the question that I ask myself, which I'm sure comes from international studies, is, okay, how are we not distorting local markets by supporting Dutch businesses? That's the question I'm asking myself. And I don't know the answer per se, but I end up asking colleagues, like, how does this work? And if I don't get a satisfying answer, I'm going to do more research into it, and I will bring it up again. So that critical perspective you definitely do bring in. Yeah. And I think it's funny because maybe during the bachelor's you're like, oh my god, when do we ever stop critically thinking about things? Is it useful at all? But it is, yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I hear a lot of people saying, like, why do we do so much theory? Like, we need to be doing more news article type of studying. But I feel like there is so much value in studying all these different theories and ways of thinking, so that when you do get the news articles, you actually know how to think about it.
Yeah.
But
if your interest is to looking more into news articles, you can definitely do that as well.
Right, yeah. Both. Yeah.
Did
you do any type of like extracurriculars or internships during your study?
So I worked as a student assistant for the Include research platform. And Include is like an independent research organization that was started actually by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but it's housed in the Africa Study Center in Leiden. So I was a student assistant there for like 1.5 years, I think. And there they did research, and I was like editing the research reports and like helping in organizing the conference. So that's something I did. I did lots of side jobs just to make some money, like work in the museum and all that. And I wrote like some conference reports. So there was like this conference which was called Africa Knows. I think it still exists actually. And it was online in that year. But then I attended different seminars and I like wrote reports on it, and it was published in like a magazine. Yeah. So that's things I did. Yeah.
That's very cool. Okay, so could you walk us through a day in your life in your current job? Just like the typical standard everyday, like Wednesday or something.
Yeah. Let's say it's a Monday. So I live in Amsterdam now, which is actually quite a travel. So I get into the train around like 7 in the morning. No, that's too early. 7:30 I get into the train. And then I get at work at like 8:30. And then on Mondays, we have like a get together, like a huddle with the entire department. So we stand around like our manager. She gives us like political updates of what's happening and how that relates to our work. What is going on in the world right now? What do we need to pay attention to? And sometimes it applies directly to your work. Sometimes it's more like general information. And we update each other then on events that are happening. Like last week we had a science policy event where different universities like Wageningen University had an interaction session with policymakers. So then we tell everybody about that and how it went and stuff like that. Then we have another meeting, which is just with the food security team. And there I also give an update on like what our cluster is working on, and if anything else needs to be discussed. And then mainly what I do in my work is program development. So there's two sides to what our team does. There's like food diplomacy, and then there is food and nutrition security programming. And I mainly work on the programs. So we are like developing programs on maybe like the health of soil, or maybe on better seeds that are climate resilient. And so when you're developing these programs, you need to interact with the embassies. So we have like calls with the embassies to inquire about what is the priority in this specific country. What do we need to take into account? And then it's a lot of writing also. So I would need to write down what we intend to do with this new program. Yeah, it's a lot of calling other people and like trying to get everything together and then writing it down. And then some days I need to present it in front of the team. So you would have a presentation and say, oh, we are planning to do this and this program. Please give us feedback. What do you think? Yeah.
What does a program look like usually?
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs doesn't actually implement the programs, right? So they just have the policy, and then we design what it needs to look like a little bit. But then there's basically parties that apply to implementing this program. And usually it's a couple of parties. So it's like a collaboration between different parties. So let's say, for example, Oxfam Oxfam, they work together with a research institute like Wageningen University or another research institute. And they will also work together with local institutes, so depending on the country that they work in. So it's widely different from the country, the topic. And usually these programs are like 5 years. So you start with like an inception phase where they say, this is what we're planning to do, this is how we are planning to measure our results. And then you also have a midterm evaluation, and we get to see that again at the ministry. And then we get to evaluate, is this program really intending what we are wanting it to achieve? And then you have an end-term evaluation, and then you also see, okay, what's next? Are we continuing down this path? Is it really achieving the things that we wanted to achieve or not? Yeah.
Wow.
But it's quite complicated. Yeah, you need to really get all the heads together, like technical experts, people on the ground, local civil society. So even when I'm kind of managing a program together with a senior colleague, it's not like I know everything that's going on in the program, because you have all these consortia partners that are working on it, and you just need to keep in close contact with them. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know what you want to do? Is this what you want to keep doing, or do you want to pivot at some point? Because I know you said earlier you want to continue to have like a very broad aspect of your life. And you probably don't know for sure, but...
Yeah, so actually I am on a temporary contract with the ministry. So like closer towards the end of this year, it will end. And I'm not sure if they will be able to keep me, because there's a lot of budget cuts, as I'm sure you've heard.
Right.
So I also don't know what's going on. And I am looking into doing a PhD perhaps, but then I would really want to do it on like land management or food security, climate, like these kind of things, still with like a sociological aspect to it. But then I would really deepen my knowledge more, so even narrow it down even more. But if I get to stay a bit longer, I would also be very grateful, because I'm still learning a lot, and I've only been working here now for like a year. By the end of this year, then like 2 years. But I forgot to say, I actually did an internship during my master's as well, at the Dutch embassy in South Africa.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's also why I ended up here at the ministry. So there I didn't work actually on environment. I worked more on like political reporting and human rights. But that was my first contact with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I don't know what the future will bring, really. Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I think I've been worried, like during my bachelor's, during my master's, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What is it that I really love? And I realized that now I'm worried again. You know, it's never going to end. And that's also what I would want to say, like, to like bachelor students, like, really, I know it's so hard, but like try to enjoy the moment, because you're gonna be worried for the rest of your life about the next step. Yeah.
Do you have any more advice for current bachelor students of IS? It could be fun things to do in The Hague, or it could be like how to handle this worry?
Okay, how to handle the worry. I think as long as you find something that you're passionate about, and it doesn't need to be like, okay, I like this specific subject now, I'm going to focus it on it for the rest of my life. But do something that you really enjoy. That's really important. Like, also during my time in Cape Town, I was worried like, oh, are they going to recognize my African degree in Europe? I was worried about that. It definitely did not matter, as I got to see later, but I was worried about that. But I also told myself, you know what, I'm having the best time. I'm learning so much. This is so interesting. I get to speak to all these new friends that I made from all over the world, and a lot of friends I wouldn't have ever met if I stayed in the Netherlands. So I was just really sure about my decision, even if it wouldn't have landed me a job like right away. So I would really, be confident in what you want to do, and then don't worry too much about what the world is saying around that. And then I guess another tip would be, at some point when you do know what you like, try to narrow it down a little bit. Just a little bit. Like, again, I'm not a technical expert on food security, but doesn't matter. I found like something that I'm really interested in, and I choose to do that. And I think for employers, it's all about being able to tell a story. Like, how did you get somewhere? What led you to what? And be specific about what you like, and it doesn't always need to be exactly true. I'm not saying you should lie, but I'm saying, you can find your story, like your red thread through everything that you've done, and then sell the story. Yeah.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
Realistic for sure.
It's also something I actually wanted to say. Because of international studies, I have friends all around the world, and it's great and it's terrible at the same time, because constantly people move and you feel like so ungrounded. And I'm back in the Netherlands now, but I don't know where my friends are. Some of them are in the UK, some of them are in Canada, some of them are in Spain. I don't know. So some are Dutch and are actually here, but a lot of people have gone away. But it's also such a blessing to be able to really have all these connections and be able to visit them anywhere. Yeah. But it's hard. Like, you need a community in a certain place to feel at home.
Yeah, I've thought a lot about that, how it's amazing that I'm making all of these friends, and it's amazing that, like, when I'll want to go on a vacation, I'll probably have a connection somewhere. But it's also, like, everyone's going to be so far apart after we graduate, so.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's all the questions I have. And it's so fun to talk to people like this. It really is quite inspiring and just fun to learn about all the different options. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I had a great time. It was great to get to know you, and super inspiring.
Thank you. Well, all the best with your studies. And,
thank you.
Enjoy your time here in The Hague.
Thank you.